It's the exposure. How important it is to put yourself in new environments. Volunteer for a project. Ask somebody that you don't know to be a mentor. Make new friends. Read books of authors you've never heard of. But ensuring you increase your exposure, because you might not know what you do not know.
JB, it is so awesome having you on the show today. I have been looking forward to this. We worked together many moons ago in a whole nother life, and maybe we'll get there. But yeah, wonderful having you here. Tell the listeners and the watchers a little bit about you.
I'm JB Ryan, and that stands for Jeanette Boshoff. But if you're not French, I prefer you just call me JB. I'm a presentation coach as well as a confidence coach, and I love igniting people's full potential, helping them unlock that full potential, because I believe people have so much untapped potential. That's a similar field to yours, just seeing that amazing potential in people. That's my one passion. And then I also lead the retail chain sales team for one of the largest beverage companies in the US, the western part of the US. And that's about 35 people I have in my team, and we do about $1 billion US dollars.
Wow, yes, that's amazing, and we'll go there because that is how we know each other through that company. So yes, but now for the best part of the show, we're traveling back in time to young you. What was that first job ever? That first, and you from South Africa, so the first rand you ever made. What was that, and what did you do? And then we'll go into some lessons.
I actually waitered during university. I went to the old Row and I waitered, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the money. I didn't have a car, so I would walk to the coffee shop in Melville, and I loved that. But then I started working as a bank teller during holidays. And let me tell you, sister, that was amazing motivation to study, because I was like, I never want to do this with my life. And yeah, so it was good money, but you know what it's like. You just sit there in the one spot all day. And that was my first real job, is working in a bank.
I love that motivation, and I felt the same. I didn't study straight from school. I moved to London, and that was also, I was like, I have to study because I was like working on the street selling charity. I'm like, no. This is
No, I want something else for my life. And then I studied communication and industrial psychology, and I always wanted to be a journalist. And then I went to go do my honors degree is what it's called in South Africa, in journalism. And I started working as a radio journalist. I loved it. And I loved it. I was in Bloemfontein, but a pretty big moment somewhere in my 20s where I realized, as a journalist, where I was, I'm never ever going to be financially independent. And I had to make a decision. How important is it to me to do this thing that I enjoy, but I earned around 60,000, and this is after a few raises, 60,000 Rand a year. That's around $300 per month. And the reality is, even though it was a sought after career because I was on the radio, it wasn't enough for a car payment and a house payment. And I decided I need to change the route here for sure, because this is not what I want for my life. I want to be able to go overseas and pay for myself. And then I started doing my master's in marketing, eventually my MBA, and then eventually I landed in CPG, or FMCG, as it's called in South Africa, consumer packaged goods, basically business. And that was the right decision because I love it.
okay. Oh, CPG. Thank you for helping me with that, because I'm like, I don't know what industry I worked in. It was FMCG, and I actually could never relate it until right now. So thank you. All right. So let's stick with the bank teller, because it feels like there might be some stories there. So tell me at least one.
I remember when I was in high school, me and my sister, we 4 children. My one sister is just 15 months younger than me. There were these boys that were singers. I think there were 4 of them, but they were like singing, and had CDs, and they were on the radio. They were pretty amazing. And then my grandparents had a family beach house, Cape St. Francis. We went there every December, and we actually met them there in person. They came to hang out at the beach house. Now, if you're not very affluent, and we were not, but you have a family history, your grandparents left the beach house, at least you can, interact with the richer people, and, you feel pretty cool. And I liked those boys, especially one of them. And I was there in the bank one day, just sitting there, as a teller, quiet day. And the next moment, one of those boys walked in. I mean, this probably when he was 19 or 20 years old. And just the way that he looked at me being a bank teller, it didn't sit right with me. And I'm like, no, I need to do more things with my life. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with working in a bank. I've done many jobs in my life, but that wasn't what it was for me. I wanted to do something different with my life.
Oh, and I'm laughing to myself because that's St. Francis. I knew someone that had a house in St. Francis, and we went to spend New Year, and it was like, ooh, this is very fancy. So
this was Cape St.
I can
Francis.
just relate.
That's a poorer cousin, Cape St. Francis. That was a poorer cousin. It was a house built in 73 and 2 small little bathrooms. So it's like it wasn't glamorous at all, but at least it gave us access to an amazing place.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we spent a New Year there, and you go out in the boats and have water balloon fights in the canal. Oh, fun times. Okay. All right. So you knew you had to study, then you went and you studied, and you were in Johannesburg then because you said Ra, right?
Yes, I studied, actually did a year of missionary work directly out of school. I felt called, so grateful for my life. I wanted to give something back to the community. And then after that, I studied at Rao. But I had this thing, I wanted to be a journalist, and somebody said, go do any degree. And then afterwards, the Stellenbosch honors in journalism. They just chose 22 a year. And this was another dream of mine, is I really wanted to study at Stellenbosch. So I did my honors there. And then from there, I had a little stint at Roy Roosse. Then I worked at the Volksrust Recorder, all the R's, Volksrust Recorder. And then in Bloemfontein, I started working at OFM. That was the radio station.
Oh, cool. Okay. So you were on the radio, you were the presenter?
No, I was a journalist. So what we did is we wrote news bulletins. So first I was journalist. You actually go out and look for stories. And I don't want to burst your bubble, but there's not that much that happens in the Free State on a daily basis. But you had to come in. It was the real deal. 6 to 8 story ideas, and you had to make those stories happen. Go out, go see what is the government doing about housing, what's happening with the fires in Botshabelo, whatever it was. You had to bring back 6 to 8 stories per day. And then later on, I got promoted to news bulletin producer. So you start at 4:45. Your first news bulletin is at 6, 6:30, 7, 8, 9. So there were 2 shifts. And that was a nice promotion. Then you take care of the bulletin from A to Z. You edit the stories, you use the news providers. So I had my little snippets, voiceovers. So it was purely the news that I was focused on.
Oh, wow. How fascinating. That's very cool.
It was nice. And then Jeanette Boshoff-Jansen, OFM News. It's fun. It was really fun.
Yes,
the radio was super fun. I enjoyed it, and it's glamorous and awesome. But I just got to a point where I decided, I can tell you what actually happened is I covered correctional services. I went to the local prison on a story, and I made friends with a liaison, and we had lunch one day, and then he told me what the person earned, or the people earned that lift the boom. They literally sit there and they lift the boom at the prison gate. And I heard it's a little bit more than what I earn after my 2 degrees. So I'm like, I am going to progress and do something else. And then I went to go work in marketing, first at the University of the Free State, and then later at the University of Johannesburg.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good for you. The person lifting the boom. Mm-hmm.
And once again, there's nothing wrong with any honest work. I respect, I've counted cars while I was at university early in the morning. You sit there and they're going to build more bridges. I've counted cars, I've dressed models, I've done a lot of crazy things. I respect any honest day's work. I just knew that I wanted a different path, and I knew I had to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. So, all right, now, so where are we? You were in Bloem, you moved to Johannesburg, you worked in marketing for the university, you said? For okay, all right. So tell me a little bit about that. That must have been interesting to
I
work.
loved it. I was marketing executive for the Faculty of Management, 12 departments like the Department of Economics, Department of Marketing, Department of, I'm trying to remember them, there were 12, logistics, 12 different ones. And I was responsible for all the marketing. So it's from your printed media to little commercials. There wasn't that much digital at the time, but events, liaison, all of that. I had a new dean and I was basically his go-to person. So I would write all these speeches when we had alumni functions and put together intellectual evenings where we would invite the alumni. So I actually really enjoyed it. It was great, but I knew I could do more than that. And I was just wrapping up my MBA and I loved the MBA. When I started doing the MBA business, I'm like, this is it. I mean, I've liked all these other things I've done, but business just made me click. I absolutely loved it, and I knew I wanted to go work for Investec or SAB, one of the big names.
Okay, and I'm picking up a theme that you just want to do more the whole time. Okay, so where did that drive come from? Like, why did you always, want more from yourself?
Now, that's a question no one's ever asked me, and I might have to think a second about that. I have high expectations of myself and big dreams. And one of the things that I tell other people is you have to increase your exposure. Because when you have big exposure, then you can achieve amazing things. It's just if your world is small, you don't know what you can do. I never, when I growing up, I've had amazing parents. I still have amazing parents. My mom was a social worker. She studied child psychology. She was a phenomenal parent, and I write a lot about her in my book. But I didn't know any woman with a real career. Let me not say real career. I mean, social work and teaching, those are all real careers, but a woman earning a lot of money. I did not know anyone like that up until, I don't know when, the head of our business school in Bloemfontein was a female. That was pretty inspiring, and there were a couple of inspiring stories, inspiring things that happened there. But I think it's only once I started working at SAB and I saw some of these women, I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. And I just believe if I had bigger role models earlier on, I would have done way more. And that's why it's important to me that every single person needs to achieve their potential. If you've got a dream in your heart, you have to go for it. Because how can you open a door for somebody else? How can you be an example if you don't go for it? For example, I've never seen anyone with a corporate America role that they're serious about, a big job, like a full-time job, that's written a book at the same time and then marketed the book. I've not seen that. I'm sure they are. I just don't know them. But I want to be that example for somebody else. You can do both. Why can't you do both? And I don't know whether that was a good enough answer, but as I'm growing and learning, I just realize how much opportunity there is out there. And, I love Strength Finder. That's one of the things I will recommend for everyone. I know everyone probably that's listening to this know about it, but everyone should know that what their strengths are. And I've always had driver or achiever or ambition in there because I think part of it might be genetic. I just, for the longest time, didn't realize that I could do all these things that were in my head.
Oh, I love that. Yes, and I have two Strength Finder books on my shelf over there. So,
Love it. I think it's so important. I'm meeting with my
yes.
team later this week, and all of them had to prepare a one-pager, and on there is your strength, your 5 strengths. Again, we've shared it before, but it reminds them and it reminds me. And let's lean into people's strengths. We all have strengths.
Yes. Oh, I love that. When I facilitate to leaders, I say you have your strengths, your development areas, and then weaknesses. And, those 3 things need to be called out very separately because we always want to focus on our weaknesses. I'm like, just leave it alone. You've got so many strengths. Just focusing on that. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. So, okay, your strengths, achiever,
Now I have to remember.
Exactly. Yeah, I know
Achiever,
it's hard. I
activator,
can't remember them. Activator.
activator.
Okay. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Get,
I like to
yeah,
get
get
stuff
things
done. I'm not gonna
done.
lie.
Love it.
Strategic, achiever, and I can't remember the other two
Okay.
off the
Yeah.
top of my head this very second. It will
Yes.
come back to me. Positivity, positivity is another
Okay.
one.
Nice,
I think
nice.
the other one's innovator. But
Oh,
positivity is always, sometimes it's number one, but the last time it was activator because I really want to get stuff done.
yes. I am picking that up. All right. So now where were we? Because we went on a little detour. So you haven't yet joined SAB or Investec. You studied your MBA. You just said things clicked. You felt like, oh, this is it. Felt super good um, about what you were doing, what you were learning. So what came next for you?
I wasn't going to go into it, but I think there is actually something I do want to share. And that is the importance of exposure. A couple of minutes ago, I said I wish I had bigger, stronger, more financially successful, or it's not just about finance, it's about career success examples, female examples growing up. But it's all about exposure. For example, my sister wanted to be an optometrist, very smart sister. And I was dating a doctor, and he's like, no, let her come with me to the hospital, come work with me for a day. She was amazing. She went and she became a doctor, which just wouldn't have happened if she didn't go with him that day. It's the exposure, how important it is to put yourself in new environments. And you had a couple of questions in your questionnaire as prep around what to do when you're stuck. Ensuring that you put yourself in new environments, volunteer for a project, ask somebody that you don't know to be a mentor, make new friends, read books of authors you've never heard of, but ensuring you increase your exposure because you might not know what you do not know. Now, the relevance here is I really wanted a different job. I knew I was ready for business, but usually when you change industries, it's not that easy, especially if you already have 8-10 years work experience. And I've always been a worker bee. Worker bee, I'm getting got way better with this over the past couple of years. But I was a worker bee, so I don't always go to all these networking events. But the head of department, the head of the marketing department at the university invited me to attend the prize-giving ceremony for their top honors students, just as a guest. Usually I wouldn't, like, why would I go 3 hours? I can work. But I went, and the guest speaker was the general manager of SAB for Gauteng. And he gave a phenomenal talk. He was, we love people that are ambitious, hardworking, want to make a difference. And he was targeting students who just finished their honors degrees, not people who have been working for many years. But as he spoke, I just knew I had to go work there. That is where I have to go work. The way that he sold it. And then afterwards, I went straight up to him. I vividly remember it, bent over a cocktail tray with eggs and little sausages. And I'm like, wonderful to meet you. I loved your talk. I want to come work for you. Now, this is a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And I was very blonde and, just that typical look of a poppy, not necessarily a very intellectual girl. And he just looked, he's a pommie, he's from the UK. And he looked at me like the cat dragged me in. You just sometimes know what people think, it's like, this pretty girl, like, whatever. And I said to him, well, I was first in my MBA class because I just graduated and I felt that was the right time. So he gave me his business card. He said, send me a note. I went back to my office, sent him my resume. He said they sent me for psychometric testing. Apparently I tested well. They created a position and the rest is history. But
Wow.
the boldness there, the two things that I want to leave you all with.
Yes,
Is
yes. I'm
firstly,
like, that was
ask
guts.
what you want. And then sometimes you get a no. Like I remember one time a CEO looking at me like I was from Mars because sometimes you'll feel like you're out of place. So there's risk with that. But I believe if you ask and you do not get, you haven't lost a thing. You just have the same you've had before. So the first one is ask and being bold, and the other one is the exposure. If I didn't go to that networking function, my life would have turned out different. I don't know how, but I probably would have not lived in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that story so much. So good for you. We worked, so for everyone listening, we worked both at SAB. So I had that same, like, this is a company I have to work with. I have to work there because
And let me
I just
just give
knew
your
the culture
listeners,
was so aligned.
let me give your listeners a little context. The SAB at the time, I guess it's similar, I can't tell you exactly, had the third largest marketing budget in South Africa. One of the largest contributors to GDP in terms of work creation, GDP dollars, rands generated. Fantastic success story. Started out as a local brewery and then went worldwide to become the second largest beer company in the world and the leader in expanding markets, growth markets, developing world. That's why AB eventually purchased them. So it wasn't about us wanting to sell beer in the first place. It was about us wanting to work for this amazing company. And so that's really what the drive and the pull was, and they treated their people well, they developed them, they drove them hard, but they made it worth it.
Yes, and being, I was in the learning and development team, and that was just like another experience, like where we were, I always say we were never fighting for seats at the table, we were like expected. Like, you will be at the table, like, obviously, because we're going to develop our people. So it was, yeah, such a lovely culture.
The
All right,
L&D was
so
amazing. The L&D was amazing. Yeah.
yes, yes. I loved my work there. All right, so now you got the job. Yes. And I know a little bit about your career, like steps and all of that, but I don't know how you moved to America. Where did you meet your husband? All of that stuff. We've got to dig deep into that.
If you're interested, I can tell you all. Here I'll go. I started out in a position that they created. Well, they had the position. They now and then put someone in there called a management trainee, somebody that was already at a leadership level that they wanted to bring in. But just as I started in the position, somebody went on maternity leave as promotions manager. And I just stepped up and I managed to just basically carry the torch and fill right into that position. And then after a couple of months, I think after she came back into a different role, they gave me the role specifically. But that was the biggest blessing in disguise, because that role, basically on the intersection between sales and marketing, way more salesy than marketing, but I was responsible for promotional execution. And at that point, we had about 40% of promotional execution, 40%, but it's hard. If you've ever worked with promoters, it's student girls that are students, they're on their phones, they've got different drivers than just earning the money, but trying to sell the product to everyone walking into a store. But I can bring structure and got that into shape pretty fast, started working with some different providers, put some great processes in place, and that went to 90%. And I learned a lot about execution in that role. And I've got a quote in my book, but I'm trying to remember the quote exactly. It is a poor strategy well executed is better than a great strategy not executed. And a lot of people, especially in strategy roles, forget that. It doesn't help if your strategy is great. If you don't have the ability, and this is really important, Norman Adamy, our CEO, taught me that. If you don't have the ability to communicate in a simplistic manner and make it actionable, it doesn't really help. And I used that there. So I worked very closely with the sales teams, and I was all about execution. And I did a couple of really good things there with the help of my wonderful assistant that worked with me, Marlet. And we got really good feedback. We got service team of the quarter. And then we went to the big conference and I saw the brand managers on stage. And I knew that's what I really wanted to do. And it took about a year and a half after I started that role. I got an amazing promotion as Castle Light Executive Brand Manager, which is basically brand director level in the US. And that was an amazing role because we had a new CEO. There were over a dozen brands, but he decided he's only going to focus on 4 brands, or 80% of the effort, 80% of the dollars is really going to be on those 4 brands. And the one that was the most profitable was the one that I was leading. I had this amazing opportunity. I totally believe in God's timing and his blessing, because no one can look at their career or their life and say, oh, but I'm amazing. Because there are so many factors at play, so many people that need to help you along the way. And if you're a believer like I am, you know that there's a bigger hand in it. But I got that amazing role at an absolutely critical time. Now, you have to give me 2 minutes that I explain to your listeners. If you've ever been to South Africa in the last, let's say, 5, 8, even 10 years, you will know what Castle Light is. When you go to a bar, when you go to a restaurant, that will be the beautiful ice cold, extra cold beer that is served. Usually a frosted draft handle, as we say in South Africa. And that is the brand. In many respects, absolutely doing fantastic, has been for a year. When I got that role, the brand was declining at 7%. Growing up during that era, Castle Light was not a cool brand. It was a brand for more the shebeens, and you would not find it in a restaurant. And you would definitely not find it at a cool bar. And but Amstel was that brand, and then we lost the license to brew Amstel, and they pulled the brand, and they were building a brewery in South Africa to start supplying Amstel. So we as a business knew that and I got the role in April. The brewery was to open in September. So we're talking about 6 months, more or less, give or take. We knew that we had to do something to get an entire nation to love a brand. That is not the brand. The brand is Amstel, the cool, amazing Amstel. We built it. We used to do the marketing for the brand. Everyone loves Amstel. How do we get people to love Castle Light? This was a survival deal for us as a business because it's high margins and we wanted to retain the premium consumer. We had the mainstream consumer, people with less disposable income, but we wanted to retain that market share, and here the competition was building their first brewery. Now, this was just important context to explain the stakes. And I had this amazing opportunity to lead that brand turnaround, which was very critical. And we did the full overhaul that takes 18 months, 12 to 18 months, and we did it in 6 months. And the CEO was all in. He gave very clear direction, more than quadrupled the marketing budgets within a couple of months on that specific brand. But I got to lead that. Now, I've never worked as hard in my life. I've never stressed as much. I've never been as bold. I never took as many risks before, after. It was not an easy road. To give you an idea, it was a normal beer. He said, make it cold. It's going to be cold. And people were like, internally, oh, all beers are supposed to be cold. Why do you make Castle Light cold? It's not going to work. I tell you, 99% of people said it's not going to work. And we introduced the thermochromatic ink, the color sensitive ink. We got Vanilla Ice out for a commercial to break through the clutter. We did a whole array of things all at the same time while many people were not believers. But I said to you in the beginning of my SAB story that my first role was a big blessing in disguise because I worked really well with sales and I knew how to get them to activate. And I also had a good relationship and they trusted my guidance in terms of promotional activity tools. And I also learned, and this has been a fantastic lesson, ask and listen. Cross-departmental collaboration is absolutely key. So I phoned Des Jacobs. He was the 1GM. I'm like, should I do green for the secondary packaging or silver? And of course we did research groups and all of that. But you know what I always say, when Henry Ford asked people about a car, they're like, no, we want the faster horse. So sure, do research, test for rejection. I know I'm getting deep into marketing speak here, but you also need to drive your strategy. And I listened to the sales feedback. We created an amazing campaign. We came out, bam, bam, bam. And that's been a real fantastic success. So after that, the rest is sort of history. That opened a ton of doors for me because of what we've done. Because no one believed, firstly, it was possible. We were relentless. We did not look left. We did not look right. We absolutely marched forward. And it took a lot of grit. You know, people told me, you will be known as the brand manager who killed Castle Light. And at the time, I just told you that I just reinvented my life. I did all of these things to now have a big career. So obviously it was scary. But I learned a lot in the process. Is everyone else does not necessarily have the answer. My boss believed in it. CEO believed in it. And then there were some other people as well. And it worked. And then, I mean, I can tell you then exactly how it worked all the way to the US. But because of that success story, I had a strong reputation. And then I got another role after that. And I actually had a job lined up in the UK that I write about in my book too. And then I came to visit my sister in Canada and I spent some time. I was on a Southwest plane for the first time, went to Vegas. I'm like, oh, I want to live in America. Americans love me and my accent. The Brits don't like our accent.
No.
Americans love me. I want to come work here. And I was really embraced. I'm very grateful. Not everyone is embraced. When they come here, I was really embraced. And then I changed my prospects from the UK to the US. And then there was a gap on Miller Lite. The senior brand manager on Miller Lite moved on, and there was an opening. And then that was the role that I got relocated for to the US. And yeah, and the rest is history. I've been loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, what a amazing story. And I was there, so yes, I can I know the energy behind that brand, what we did to support, and yeah, it was like a company wide thing. So that it was very cool. All right. So you relocated to America. The company relocated you.
Yeah, well, it was
And where do
slightly,
you
slightly
live now?
different. It was
Where were you based?
So this was a little bit more complex than that because in the US, because of competition law, we had a joint venture. Miller Brewing had a joint venture with Coors Brewing Company. So it wasn't like it was a internal move. But because of, I had a couple of people who were open-minded about it. At the time, the CEO had a moratorium on no internal transfers from South Africa to the US because people like being transferred and they never go back. And it's just a lot of opportunity. It's just the size of the pie. It's a bigger pie. And then the role was in Chicago. I moved to Chicago, my first real world city. Great experience there.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it.
I
Moving
loved
and
it. I
all
loved
the
it. It's so funny. I moved on July 1st. I landed on July 1st. I thank the Lord, and I don't mean in a bad way that I improved, but I was such a worker bee. I remember working my last day. I was what was my title? Marketing manager on Grolsch and Pilsner Urquell. I worked until 4:30. I got in my car with my bags in the trunk and I drove to the to the airport where my brother and the rest of my family that I haven't said goodbye, and I literally got on the plane straight from the office to the airport. And that was on the Friday, and then the Monday, and then my brother bought my car. So literally I was like from the job to the new country, and then the Monday I started.
wow, jet lag and all.
Yeah, and then part of the story I wanted to tell is that it was beautiful. Chicago in the summer, if you haven't been, it's beautiful city. The lake and the buildings, it's like a love song. It's like a spring song. I can't even explain how beautiful it is. And the people all had half-day Fridays. In my own mind, I'm like, I don't know, these people don't want to work very hard here. Like 12 o'clock on a Friday, they knock off. And then winter came, where it's dark at 3 o'clock and you never see the sun and it's never warm. Like, oh, now I understand summer Fridays. But yeah, a great experience. Chicago is a wonderful city. And I enjoyed being in the same industry because there is a difference between countries. So it made that transition so much easier. And then I was in that role for 2.5 years. And got to the point where I wasn't sure that I wanted to spend my entire career in brand management because I've done it. I've worked on different brands. It's just more of the same. But it was also really nice. So I wasn't sure I wanted to let go. And we would also always shoot our commercials in LA. And then my first shoot in LA, I was like, yeah, no, I need to come live in California. That's what I ultimately want to do. And then I got a great sales opportunity. And that's one of the lessons as well that I have here in my notes is taking opportunities, even though you might not think it's the right opportunity. I didn't want to move to Texas. There was a great sales role and there was one in Chicago. And I thought that's the role they were going to give me, sales leadership role. And then they said, the man that called me is like, hey, JB, congrats, you got the job in Texas. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't want the job in Texas. But if I didn't take that role, I had 18 months in that role, I would have never gotten my dream job in California. I had to have that first sales leadership role, get to know the distributors, learn new skills. It was a great, great example of taking a risk, doing something that's not your first prize in order to get to another destination.
So you did move to Texas?
Yeah, and I really
Yeah.
didn't want to because I grew up in Pretoria. And there are a lot of similarities. And I've left Pretoria when I was 18. But my boss was amazing, allowed me to live in Austin, Texas. And I lived right on the lake. I'm a runner, outdoorsy person. I loved it. That first year I did 167 flights.
Oof.
And so it didn't really matter where I was based because I was on a plane, 3, 4 planes a week. And
Wow.
yeah, so 18 months, and then I moved to California, where I'm still based in Southern California.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. So now we have heard so much about your amazing career and loved it. What were some of the low points or the hard things that you've had to go through? And then how did you get through those?
There were many. The first one is what I referenced when I had to make a switch from one career to a different one. And that was later in my career. I already invested a lot in the field I was in. And I was also just at a point in my personal life where I knew this is not the life that I envisioned for myself. Something that took me quite a few years, I only got there in my later 20s, is to really believe in yourself and your own abilities. That took me a long time. And if I could go back, I would say to my real younger self, and I know we're getting to that, but it's going to be okay. God's got your back. Take chances. Do things. Don't be so worried about the outcome. Don't be so worried about the perfect journey. God's got your back. It's going to work out. And if it doesn't, you try something else. That is definitely something that I took a while to learn. That was a real big decision for me, all the changes that I made at the time, saying goodbye to what I had. And then the Coastal Light period was actually pretty hard for me because there was a lot of weight on my shoulders at the time. I mean, we were 3 in the team initially. Eventually, the team had more than 10 people, but all of this happened during a 6 months with, the HR process started while we had to get all of this done. And I had to make very big decisions, like literally, what do I put on the pack? I was the only one taking care of the Vanilla Ice commercial with the agency in Cape Town. I've never been on a shoot. Now I'm leading it. So there was a lot of stress during that time. And like I said, not everyone believed that this was going to work. But there I learned to be tough and grit. And let me tell you, there's no substitute for grit. I remember what somebody told me afterwards, one of the sales leaders here. He spoke with the CEO in South Africa and asked him about me. Probably wanted to know, should we put her in a sales role, whatever. And he's like, well, I can tell you 2 things about her. That's hearsay. She works hard and she's tough. And being able to be tough, making a mistake. I mean, I did once on Grolsch, we started shipping cans. We put Grolsch in cans. We started shipping it to South Africa from Amsterdam. And then the research bombed and consumers didn't like the plastic that it was in. And we had to repack, things like that. There's been so many examples of where I made a decision because you have to be decisive in life. You have to be decisive where it was not necessarily the best, and then I had to course correct. But what I learned along the process, and it probably only came full circle about 10 years ago, is to learn from your mistakes, take feedback, get up, and run faster. And that's really helped me, specifically the part about taking feedback. If you ask my boss, my previous boss, even 2 bosses ago, about JB, they will tell you, maybe this and this and this thing she's not the best at, but I can give her any feedback, she's going to take it with a good attitude. So that's definitely helped me as when I go through those challenges, learn from it, share what's happened, not be defensive about it, and keep on running.
Oh, love that. Yes. Yes, to the grit, it helps so much. So, and I can see that. I can just see your whole story. It's just in every single story you say, it's
Maybe
this
I add a
lady has
sentence.
grit.
Maybe I add something. let me add something about that, about the grit. And part of that is confidence in self. It's a muscle that you build. I've done a couple of hard things in my life. I was so scared to go study my MBA. Now, MBA back in the day, it was different. 50% of the results or your marks were actually individual test results. And then the other 50 were the assignments, class participation. And I was scared. What if I don't pass? And then I ended up best in my class. So that, and I'm not bragging when I say it. I'm telling you, I almost didn't do it. But that taught me something. So when I walked into the SAB psychometric testing, I wasn't scared because I believed in myself. Now when I have a project that's really difficult, I've always gotten roles like the Castle Light. Most of my roles were pretty challenging when I step into it. I don't mind because I know that I have it in me to rise to the occasion. But that's only built in adversity. It's only adversity that makes us tough. And the failures. And as a parent, I know nothing about parenting. My son is only 6, so I'm not giving anyone advice. But that's one of the things for me is I don't want to create such a cushioned life that I take the opportunity from my kid to learn to rely on themselves and build that confidence and grit in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, yes, I love that so much. I just want to soak it in. That is so good. Yeah. And were there times, have you ever quit something? Have you ever just said, I'm not up to this. I can't do it. I'm not good enough, or I don't have the skills. Is there anything that you've walked away from? Maybe in hindsight it was a good thing, but in the moment you were like, I'm just not up to it. Or has there ever been a time?
Trying to think whether there's a good example of that. I don't think so, with the exception of my marriage in my 20s. So I was also married in my 20s when all of this went down. And I'm from a background where, you can kill somebody before you divorce them. It's just not done. It was never in the picture. But I got to this point where I realized that I'm either going to cry myself to sleep every night and wake up one day and be 40. Just one chance we have on earth. We don't have a second one. Just one chance. I'm very passionate about this. That's part of the reason I wrote this book and I started You Ignite It. Because do not live a life you do not want to live. I'm not saying your job's going to be perfect every day. There are things you can do to enrich your career and your life. But you should love your life, or at least many components of it. And I got to a point where I was willing to draw the line and create a new life. So to me, that was something where I quit. But to me, it wasn't about quitting. It was about, I believe that I'm going to create something and have something that's going to be better for me. Yeah, so career-wise, I don't know that there's really been a quit scenario. And by the way, I do think that you need to know how to quit and when to quit. But what I've learned during that entire process of studying through the night in my 20s, and even now in December, I had a few nights where I had to work through the night on the book because I work full time, and I wrote this book 5 to 6 2 mornings a week, and the rest of the time it was over the weekends. So I had to work through the nights. I remembered I can work through the night. So I don't remember another time that I quit because I just hang in there. I go until I can't go anymore, and then I go some more.
One more step. All right. Now, so we up to your current life. That's, yes, you're in Southern California now. So you decided to write a book. What made you do that? And I'm asking a little bit selfishly because that's like a goal I have and I really want to do that. So what made you do it? How did you decide what to write about? And what was the process? Tell us
I
all
would
the
love,
things because
I,
that is hard.
I can talk to you about this all day. I knew years ago that I was going to write a book one day, even before my journalism days. But I was actually a really shy child, genetically. And my mother realized that very soon. I mean, she had to hide me under a chair at Bible study because people were not allowed to look at me, put a blanket over. I was debilitatingly shy. And she helped me through it with a lot of theater lessons. I did 10 years of theater and drama training. And I became a strong speaker. Not saying I'm the best, but I can get my message across. So when I get up, I have no shivers. I'm not scared at all. I'm not shy at all. But I learned that. That's not my nature. I learned that over time. And I work in business. And 80% of my life, I was the only woman in the room or only one of 20%. And I don't think gender, like I don't think, oh, I'm the only woman. I don't think in terms of gender. And I have no problem with that. But then I see most other women, and I'm not just talking about my own company, I'm talking in general, questioning themselves, being reluctant to speak up. When they do, not sounding like they believe in themselves. And you know what? If you don't sound like you believe in what you say, no one else is going to believe in you. And then over time, I just became more and more confident. I've given, by now, it's over 5,000 presentations. It's been a big part of what I've done in every single job I've had. And then in 2014, when I was on the brand team on Miller Lite, I gave a big proposal to the CEO of Molson Coors for a big dollar amount to turn around Miller Lite, who was declining at the time. This is no secret. And the presentation went fantastic. I practiced the principles that I've learned over, I want to say, 30 years. And the presentation went well, and a couple of people came up to me and like, whoa, JP, that was so amazing. How did you do that? Blah. And I realized this is a skill that differentiates people that you can learn. It is a skill that you can learn. Because let me tell you, my sister, who is 15 months younger than me, she is way more talented. When she walks in the room, she's got the whole room just looking at her, talking to her. She's got this amazing big energy. I used to be shy by nature, so I know it's learned. And I wanted to teach others, especially women. But now after working in sales leadership for almost 10 years, not only women, I feel like most people I have a friend, he works for a very big company. He gets medicine from his doctor before he goes up and speak. It's not necessary. You just need to learn a couple of techniques. So that's what happened. And then I asked my boss, can I please present a training class to my direct team on how to present with confidence? And he's like, yeah, go for it. But now don't just present it. You have to teach them. You want to see results. I started doing that from time to time, periodically. And then after a couple of years, I was involved in a Women in Beer initiative. And once again, and then confidence started coming up. And because I've over years, I feel really good about my confidence at this point, or it's really belief in myself, because many things I don't do great. I mean, I'm not the best cook. I'm not the best at organizing. I'll never be a room mom for my kid because my husband does the sports team coordinations because that's what my skill set. But I can get a message across effectively. And I started working with people more and more. And then I started doing keynotes about it. And the more and more I speak with women, the more I realize how much many women, I don't want to generalize, doubt themselves. And I see it when they go on stage versus many of the men. I've got a great illustration in the book where the one is if you don't have confidence and you don't have great skills, the big gap that you can't overcome. But then if you have many skills gaps, but you have great confidence, you actually cross the bridge. You get your message across. And I started doing keynotes and coach people, but I do have a full-time job that I love. And so many times people would ask me, can you please help me write my speech or coach me? And I'm like, I need to write a book that I can tell them, grab this book, read page 2, chapter 2 and chapter 11. Your problem is breath and body language. Instead of me then having to spend multiple hours, multiple times. So that is why I wanted to do it, to help more people. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, by no means, but everyone can get better. I just wanted to put tools in people's hands. And I've been writing for a really long time, and I had a lot of training materials that I used. And then I had 7 words. The book had 7,000 words. And then my sister, who has a full-time career, wrote a book and it became a bestseller. And I decided I need to stop procrastinating. And I started working with a publisher that puts you on a year-long program. You pay a ton of money, a lot of money, but then you're accountable. If I'm going to pay money and they say you need 2 chapters by the end of February, then I'm going to submit 2 chapters. And that I can highly recommend that, to work with a publisher that gives you structure. It's almost like a master's degree to help you, especially if you have a different career as well. So there you got a lot of answers. If you have any follow-up questions, go for it. But it was a lot of work, but honestly, the writing was easy. The editing wasn't that fun. But I'm so happy I did it. And I'm going to give you a little example. I have a good friend, she's a veterinarian. She lives, oh, I should probably not say where she lives. She had a big conference and she was going to speak at the conference. And she's like, JB, I know you just wrote a book about it. I'm going to speak at this big conference. I've never done it. Do you have some tips? I sent her a few chapters that were done and edited at the time. She said she got feedback that she was the best presenter out of her entire company. Just basic principles, things you can do, like a 2-minute power pose, the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. Not talking about rocket science, but making it easy enough for people to do it in bite-sized chunks. And I think I've done that with a book. You be the judge after you've read it, you tell me.
I am definitely reading this book. So I will let you know. I'm sure it's going to help a lot. So, wow. And again, you didn't ever want to quit? You didn't ever think this is too much? You just knew you were going to get through it, knew it was in your stars. Like it feels like you have a lot of conviction around your dreams that they're just going to happen.
100%. I never considered quitting for 1 second, but what I can tell you, I did is all because I've got a purpose here. I know so many people, and I talk about that in the book, that are more talented than me, more talented than others. They didn't have the conviction, the mindset, and belief in themselves to act on all of that and create the life that they wanted. And this book gives you the tools. Now, I've got a chapter on mindset, I've got a chapter on confidence. A lot of it is about public speaking, because that is a topic of the book, but it's really underpinned by some other themes. I wrote it because I really passionately believe in it, because I want to change people's lives, man. I tell you, I could have lived a very different life in a very little town where I could always have been just the +1, not living out my dreams. And I had to dig deep and believe myself. So firstly, I believe in this book. Secondly, to answer you, I never considered quitting, but I wouldn't write another book for a while. I have a lot more in me because of the burden I felt it put on my husband and my little son. He never complained. He's just proud of me. I've got the best husband in the world by far. But all Saturdays for months, at least 6 months, I didn't make a sports game. So many times I said I have to spend at least 8 to 10 hours on a Saturday. He literally had to take my son to his sports games and then to Target. That was the harder part for me, is that special time with my family that it cost. Now, I made up for it. We did a lot of trips in between. But that was harder for me. But quitting was never an option. It's just I felt guilty about my son at night, because every night, after 8, never get him to bed before 8 or 8:30, even if I try, I would go sit in the office, and I've got a day bed in the office, and he would come lay with me. Sometimes he would bring paper and write his book.
No. That is so cute. So, setting a good example for your son.
I hope so. Ultimately, raising a well-rounded human is the most important job in life.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And very hard.
I don't know how much time we have, but
Yes.
I do want to say something. You asked about the goal. And I don't know that we're going to get to lessons, but something I do want to say, if I could recommend one thing, is for everyone to set life goals. And I have a tool for that I created that's on my website, but it doesn't matter. There are many different tools. But decide what your life goal is, and it takes time. Most people, if you ask them what's your life goal, don't know. But then with that, the second part is determining your values. Many online exercises to find out how to do that. I've got it in my book too. But once you know what your values are and what your life goals are, the rest become easy. You can be authentic because you know what your values are. You are true to your values. And you know where you are going. For me, one of my biggest life goals is I want to inspire people to let go of limiting beliefs and fears and reach their potential. Because this world needs more people that are bold and courageous to make a positive impact. So that's really important to me, is that to set that life goal, set those values, because then the rest becomes real easy.
Yes, absolutely. I have done a lot of work on that in the last year or two or so, like digging deep, and it really has changed the decisions I make every day. So I think that is something that we can't underestimate, the power of just knowing where you're going. Okay, give me a second before I ask the last question. It's a high maintenance dog. All right. Okay. So yeah, let's wrap up. So thank you for sharing everything. It's been so amazing getting to know you since we knew each other, which has been years ago. So traveling again, let's close the loop back in time. And you have mentioned this, but what would you thank your younger self for doing? And I ask this question because we give our younger selves a hard time, like we didn't know, or if we could do it differently. But I think we set ourselves up for where we are today. And so I like to look at that younger self and say, well done.
You know, God's got your back. Well done. You know, I had to make so many big decisions that were risky. And I would say to myself, well done. It's going to work out great. Thanks for being bold, being courageous, acting while you were scared. Your life is going to work out not 10 times, not 100 times, but 1,000 times better than you can ever imagine, because you are being bold and courageous and you embrace the pain and the hurt and the fight. And I would just thank myself for the tough decisions I made. I wish I made more tough decisions earlier. But in terms of thanking myself, it's like, you go, girl. Thanks for working hard and for sticking it out and being gritty and taking risks and being okay with no's, lifting up your face, look at the sun. God's got your back, girl.
I love that. Yes. Well done to younger you.
I'm very grateful. I do want to say that, it's easy to talk about my life and be, oh, I'm amazing, amazing. I don't think that. I have many flaws. One of them is speak less, listen more, whether it's with my family, with my team. I'm very aware of, hopefully I'm aware of all the areas, but I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I got and for the doors that people have opened for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Any last wrap up you want to tell our listeners or watchers?
I have a couple of life lessons. I see we're out of time. I spoke about the most important life lesson in terms of...
Go for it. I would love to hear.
Starting with your life goals, working on that. That is the first one. I want to mention mindset. Mindset is everything. Everything. I believe that is what differentiates people. Starting with a growth mindset and then expecting the best. So many times in my own life, I was looking at worst case. What if best case happens? Really expecting the best. I've got it written in very big letters in my house. Expect the best. Have that mindset, that positive mindset, that energy. People need to want to have you in a room because of what you bring. There's another quote by Dr. Becky Kennedy. I wrote it down. Curiosity over judgment. Being positive, believing that the best will happen, giving people the benefit of the doubt. The third one is you always have options. If you think about being stuck in a career, like, I can't, you have options. You always have options. And then exposure. We spoke about exposure. I'm not going to go through that again. And then lastly, I'd say be strong and courageous. You know, as I'm getting older, I think about it a lot. Just one life. I'm never going to be 30 again. Looking back, when I was running around with my Jenny Batten suits there at SB Miller, so beautiful, all I was stressed about the job. Like, enjoy the moment, enjoy this life, be bold and courageous, and make the most of it.
I love that. I'm going to write it down and get people to download those lessons, because that is fantastic. And yes, I like how you said, as I'm getting older, and like you look back and think, I could have just enjoyed that a little bit more, you know. And I'm doing the same. I'm going through that and really trying to embrace the now and be like, I'm here. Like, this is amazing.
Exactly.
So,
This
yeah.
is it.
Good life lessons. Really awesome. Yes. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. It's been wonderful chatting and getting to know your story.
Thank you, Candice.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.